Hello everyone, welcome to TotalCults.com. This is a regular podcast.
Very regular for us.
Very regular.
More regular for us than it is for you listening at home.
Well, it depends how regularly we've been able to upload them. We've certainly been recording them quite regularly.
Yeah.
But that's like things like the Generation game, they used to record in blocks of...
Really?
Yeah, so when Bruce Forsyth used to say, such a good audience, so much better than last week's, the joke there is that it was the same audience as last week's, because last week's audience had sat there through like 10 recordings.
Wow.
Did you not know that?
Well, he successfully fooled me there.
Well, he did. And actually, when you understand that that's an in-joke against the audience, he suddenly comes across quite snide. And I think they should possibly take away his award he was given.
He's basically saying to them, last recording, you lot were shit.
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't interpret that as the snideness. I took it as a dig at the audience. He's saying so much better than last week's. The audience laughs till they go, ha, we're the same.
Yeah.
But the audience at home don't know that. And the people at home eating their pies and watching their Brucey and crying gently into their cornflakes wouldn't know. Good afternoon. Welcome to TotalCults.com.
We're about films, really, aren't we?
We are about films.
TV as well. But...
Yeah, exactly. And I think we're going to touch on TV a bit today.
Yes. Because we're talking about not childhood fears in a more general sense, but what on film in film and TV
stuff from film and TV that scared us.
Possibly that wouldn't scare us now, or possibly that might be surprised. Might have some surprise scares.
Do you think some things that scared you as a child do still scare you now? And if so, do you think that reflects badly on your growth into maturity?
No, I think there's things that there's different. There's things that possibly weren't intended to be that terrifying. That now no longer are terrifying because you saw something in them that appealed to your kind of the makeup of you as a child that threatened your conceptual world and scared you. Yeah. Or there are things that were meant to be scary for adults at the time, which I saw as a child, which scared me, and which therefore still scare me because they're supposed to work that way. So, for example, I'll start us off. The film It.
Right.
Terrified me. Yeah, terrified me.
Miniseries.
As a child. I kind of didn't like clowns anyway, which I think is fairly common.
You're not allowed to say that because clowns have a big movement going around persuading people they're not scary. You must have come across this. They've been lobbying and saying, no, we're not scary. Stop everybody saying we're scary. Please stop saying we're scary, or we'll come along in the middle of the night and drive pins into your eyes.
An aggressive clown telling you saying we're not scary is terrifying.
They're their own worst enemies in some cases.
Yeah. So it did it for me.
It did it for you?
In terms of, yes, scared me.
Oh, not sexually.
No. Let's be clear on that. Well, maybe. Maybe. And I've not seen it recently.
It's not very good.
No, and I know the big spy thing at the end didn't really do it scare me at all.
Bits of it sort of work. It has problems because of the structure of it being basically a mini-series, actually, because it wasn't a TV movie, was it? It was a two-part mini-series, so it was what were 2-hour episodes that then, when you cut them down, cut all the ad breaks out, it becomes hour and a half, and then it adds up to 3 hours. So structurally, as I'm sure I watch it as a film, it's kind of broken in the middle, and the adults, the second part of it focusing on the adults, they're not nearly as compelling as the kid actors in the first half. So bits of it work. Bits of the shots, the scare shots, are slightly creepy.
Curiously enough, and it was more of an image or a sequence of images that scared me. It was also another Stephen King TV adaptation, was Salem's Lot, which was The Child at the Window. That
seemed to have got a lot of people actually.
Yeah. Now the reason it scared me was I was flicking across the channels at the time, turned it on to whatever I saw. I recognised it was a film. And this was when I first had my own TV in my room.
Right. How old were you?
I'm guessing possibly 12, 13, that kind of. Recognised the film, just left it on, I think went in the background. Heard the kid scratch at the window and went open that. And that image of it floating in that kind of ethereal mist absolutely terrified me to the point where I had to turn over. And because I think it was... I possibly associated getting my own TV in my room with me becoming slightly older and having more responsibility, and the room being mine, because I had shared with brothers
and then
at
it
the time.
felt invaded.
And suddenly I felt all alone, like, was there something out my window? And that really, really struck me.
And of course there was actually a monster outside of your window.
Constantly floating. I mean, as I got older, it became more of an annoyance, really.
Yes.
If you want to just come in, don't scratch.
Absolutely.
You know.
Don't just... I think they like the voyeurism.
But he didn't want to scratch. He didn't want to come in. He just wanted to sit and scratch my window.
And peer at you.
Yeah. So he's gone now.
Good.
He got bored because I ignored him and he went away.
Fair enough.
Now you have a similar experience, not with things actually bothering you in the night.
Do you get the thing where someone starts to feed you for what's obviously a prompt for a story, and you sit there not having a fucking clue what direction they're about to take it in? Because when you said you have a similar story, and I don't have a clue what way he's taking me here.
Yeah, I believe vampires.
I get it. Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
You see that was a good link.
Yeah. No, it would have been really smooth. Try it again. Hang on.
Okay, so I believe you have a similar experience, not with things actually bothering you, but vampiristic.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
This is for the Buck Rogers thing, isn't it?
That we just watched.
Yeah.
Three minutes ago.
Try it once more.
6 minutes ago, we sat and watched an episode of Buck Rogers.
We did, yes.
Called Space Vampire.
Yeah.
Which I brought in primarily because you've been telling me about as a child. It frightened you.
This is for the what frightens you thing. Is that what we're doing today?
And that's what I'm doing. And I went from my fear by offering up the fact that maybe we talked about it in the past, and I was just not that we'd watched it just now.
Oh right, okay. Oh,
that naturally
we're
have
not going to tell them that we've only just watched it.
Well, no, I thought it might suggest we as two kind of professionals in this kind of realm, that we maybe have this dialogue ongoing outside of this, perhaps throwing something like that would
that would have been good. It would have been slick as well.
Yeah, but what you have done is possibly put across that maybe your memory span is so short, that it requires me to spell it out in the way that I've just done.
Even though I've only just watched the episode, the episode itself, minutes before starting this recording, I have no real clue. Okay. I never used to watch Buck Rogers as a kid. Obviously, in the late 70s, no families had a video recorder, and my family never really used to watch ITV in the evenings. They always used to watch BBC. And as the youngest kid in the family, I didn't really get an awful lot of say over what channel we were on. I was certainly never going to end up on ITV on a Saturday night, so I never got to see Buck Rogers, except we went to a friend's wedding.
Right.
And my parents weren't controlling the TV that was in the lounge at the reception, and so I did see an episode of it then. But that was it. That was the only Buck Rogers I'd seen as a kid. However, I was fascinated enough with Buck Rogers, and obviously would have seen it because I bought the sticker album.
Okay.
And filled it completely. But the back section of the sticker album was dedicated to an episode called Space Vampire.
Right.
And I, looking at the pictures from that, I thought that looked properly creepy. There was this sort of melon-headed vampire with an enormous monobrow.
Yes.
Who I imagined, would be the distillation of cinematic evil.
Now, there's another link there, because the design, having just seen the episode for myself for the first time, there is similarities in design between that and not only Nosferatu, but the creature from Salem's Lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's obviously something about bulbous heads and
long fingers
that kids don't like.
Yeah.
I certainly didn't, but I was fascinated with it as well. I mean, it wasn't, I collected all the stickers, and every time I opened a packet that had a new picture of the space vampire, I felt a certain frisson, I mean, it drew me in as well as pushing me away. And seeing the episode now, I think although to modernise, it's probably quite ridiculous.
Yes, it would be.
I still think had I seen it in the late 70s, it probably would have freaked me out quite badly. Particularly the first appearance,
the first reveal
of the fourth one is quite nicely done.
And done in a way that so few horror films deal with. They normally do the traditional, we'll keep it hidden in the shadows, point of view shots, whereas this was something that always frightens me is where you think you've seen something and it's gone, just sitting at the end of a table.
Yeah, Wilma Deering looks around the bar and the vampire's just there.
Yeah.
And then she looks back and there is a shot of it, but then she looks back and it's gone.
Yeah.
Really nicely executed, actually.
Very well done. So had you seen the episode, or was it just referencing the stickers?
No. All I'd ever seen was the stickers, which I collected avidly.
As an episode, seeing it now, did it live up? I mean, obviously, I don't think it lived up to the full expectations you had.
No,
but did it disappoint you?
Well, it's the first episode probably of Buck Rogers that I've seen since that one that I saw in the wedding hotel reception.
Yeah.
In probably 1980, something like that. So. I was quite surprised at how some of it, as a show, I want to see more. It was quite campy. Some of the effects were quite good.
Yeah. The pilot specifically, as I mentioned, is very well produced. I was surprised that the matte paintings are excellent and the integration of live action with the matte paintings is very, very good. Mm-hmm. Model shots are great. Obviously, there is some TV stuff in the way it's shot. It's very TV.
Right.
Very, very single, long takes, single camera setups, a couple of but or multi-camera in the sense that it's just played out and done from a couple of angles. But for a TV pilot, very, very highly produced. And lots of good stuff going on. Great, good cast. Henry Silver as the villain. I'm a big Henry Silver fan. Right. If you're familiar with his work.
Do you call him Big Henry Silver all the time?
Big Henry, yeah.
Yeah.
Me and Big Henry.
Yeah, you're like that.
Exactly like that.
And by the way, when I said that, the gesture I made with my fingers was the pointy finger going in the hole.
Yes.
You're like that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're exactly like that. Well, why do you think I called him Big Henry?
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So good cast. And I was pleased surprised. Now, I do feel that having watched the rest of the series, it's one of those things where a box set owning it is probably a bit much. I don't feel I need to watch every episode. I think I've seen enough of that series now to get the gist of it. Should I be in the mood, as we discussed a couple of weeks ago, to some science fiction action,
right.
Difficult to find, that might be a well I can go to. It doesn't quite fulfil the very specific criteria I set out.
No.
But it'll go some way to doing that.
They're not as specific as your fancy criteria, though.
Not quite as specific. No, not. Don't get me started on Tweaky.
No.
But
are you threatening to beat up Tweaky?
I don't think I could. I think
he's metal, isn't he?
He's metal.
I always thought I had a toy Tweaky as well. You see, It's actually quite sad if you look back at the amount of Buck Rogers crap I had, considering I'd never seen the show because my parents would watch BBC rather than ITV. Because I had the sticker book. I had a little plastic Tweaky, like a Star Wars figure type thing, but Buck Rogers. I wanted Tiger Man, but he was really hard to get. He was really hard to get hold of. In fact, I've been tempted to get him off eBay since. Yeah. And I had a Corgi spaceship.
Diecast.
As well. Yeah. Which was really nice. And it had little wings that popped out.
Yeah, there was two. I had two. I had the larger diecast one, which was about that big, with blue plastic things on the back, and that had the flick-out wings, and maybe a missile that fired.
Yes, I think it did.
And there was a smaller, more like the kind of Matchbox Hot Wheel car size ones, where the wings came out, but you had to slide a blue thing underneath that came back.
That as well.
So there were there, which I believe go for quite a bit of money now. And it is an Interceptor, I think it's called. Most fighters were called Interceptors at some point, so I might be getting confused there. So but I wasn't aware there was an action figure range until I saw. We've got a toy shop in London Road that sells second-hand and old toys, and there's a little Buck Rogers figure in the window there.
Boxed?
No. Looking a bit worse for wear.
You can find them on eBay, though.
But then again, so does Jill Gerard at the moment, I imagine. Do you want to talk about the sweary episode as well, which I showed you?
Well, yeah,
might clear it out for some people.
According to the BBFC episode, there's an episode called Planet of the Slave Girls. And according to the BBFC, that episode got rated 12 for strong language. We talked about censorship on last week's podcast, I think.
Yes.
Probably. Depending on what order they get uploaded in. But yeah, it's on the BBFC thing. It's down as a 12 for strong language. Yeah. Only one.
And the reason I showed you this section of episode was because having watched it with my wife, we were convinced that Buck Rogers had said "fuck."
Yes.
Now, as much as we were convinced,
and so were the BBFC.
Yeah, and we replayed it, and we couldn't. 12. What I think didn't help was the fact that the entire sentence is kind of garbled, and the only word
he's talking over a space intercom at the time.
And we watched it back and back and back, and we were sure that he couldn't have said that because it's a Buck Rogers, TV show. But we couldn't think of anything else that went in place. Now, you very cleverly just went on Google and looked it up and resolved the issue very quickly.
That's what we do in the 21st century. But you need to know what to Google, because I'd Googled the episode title and all that sort of thing, and what I actually Googled was what I could make out of the sentence along with Buck Rogers. Yeah.
And what we can reveal is he doesn't say fuck. He says there's something wrong with your funk and wagnalls.
Funk and wagnalls, which apparently is an encyclopedia. And the joke of referring to looking things up in a funk and wagnalls dates back to Rona Martin's Laugh-In from the 60s. So it's a sort of cultural reference that's no longer relevant. Yeah. And him saying something wrong with your fucking wagnalls. It was what it sounded like.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, what are wagnalls and why did he just say fuck?
Yeah.